In my opinion, the Seattle Seahawks got an absolute steal when they selected Tory Horton in the 5th round. Just yesterday, it seemed like every SEC school in the country wanted Horton, and he was considered the top group of 5 wide receiver. Except, after having one bad year due to injuries, everybody forgot about this guy. But Tory Horton's journey here was nearly impossible. He was barely ranked coming out of high school, and had to spend time at both Nevada and Colorado State before becoming one of the top receivers in college football, and now a 5th round draft pick to Seattle. Some are saying that he has wide receiver 2 potential in the league, and in today's video we're going to talk about Tory Horton. We're going to go through his near impossible journey to get to this point, and his fit with Seattle. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Tory Horton. So in order to understand how Horton got to this point, we first need to go back in time. He ended up growing up in the city of Fresno, California, and would actually attend games at Fresno State, and was a Bulldogs fan growing up. He came from an uber athletic family, as his dad Tim was a talented basketball player, his brother Timmy served in the Army, his sister was an All-American volleyball player at UTEP, and his other brother Tyler Horton was actually a 2-time first-team All-Mountain West corner at Boise State. He also ended up being an undrafted free agent in the NFL, and I think got a couple of tryout opportunities. Tory says he remembers going on recruiting visits with his older brother as a middle schooler, and at the time his brother Tyler was a 3-star recruit who held Power 4 offers from schools like Cal, Washington State, and even Miami, but he went to Boise. This made the younger Tory desire getting the same kind of attention from college programs, but it would never end up coming to fruition when he eventually got to high school. He ended up also going to Washington Union High School in Fresno, and was a crazy explosive athlete that nobody knew about. He came from the part of Fresno that produced recent big-time players like Cal wide receiver Jeremiah Hunter, Xavier Worthy who was at Texas, and Chicago Bears corner Jalen Johnson. There were definitely a couple of big names, and he had a pretty good high school career. During his senior season, Tory ended up having 37 catches for 821 yards and 15 touchdowns, and his team also won the state championship. He was a 3-sport athlete who was good at football, basketball, and baseball, and got interest from FCS programs. Montana, Montana State, and Northern Colorado all wanted him, but no FBS team was willing to take a chance on him, who was extremely explosive. Tory admits he probably would not have gone to Fresno State if they offered him, but the fact that his hometown college team did not offer him was very frustrating. He thought he was good enough to be a scholarship player for the Bulldogs, and Horton's family was very disappointed they didn't get one from Fresno. He attended a couple of their camps in high school, but was deemed not good enough to play for them. Besides, he did want to leave the area for college anyways, but it kind of felt like a slap in the face. But Fresno wasn't really that far off the mark, as nobody wanted him. In fact, the only school that ended up offering him a scholarship was Nevada, and they were very late to the party, as they offered a month before signing day. Going back a little bit, by October of 2019, he had just 2 offers in Montana and Northern Colorado, and then the last time Boise State played at Nevada, Tory was in the stands watching his brother and had no idea that would be his future school. Back in 2018, Tyler Horton had a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, and Tory was in attendance for the game. He said, quote, "I actually came to the Nevada game when they played against Boise. When I came to the game, I never knew I'd be at Nevada. It's something special to think about going back to that game, and I was there when my brother played against them, and it feels nice to actually play here." As I said, he would end up getting a Nevada offer, as he was noticed by receivers coach Eric Scott, who ended up going off to San Jose State after that, but in 2019, he reached out to Tory to see if he wanted to take an official visit. Tory said, quote, "It was very last moment when he contacted me, and I think signing day was a month later. They wanted to get me on a visit, and they wanted me to see everything. But it wasn't always pretty, as when the staff actually decided to visit one of his games, he had the worst performance of his senior season, having just 1 catch for 54 yards. But the staff saw many reasons to offer him, and they decided to extend that scholarship. To their delight, he would immediately sign with them, and Jay Norvell was super pumped. He was the head coach at the time, and he said, quote, "He's been my favorite player ever since I signed him. And we talk about what we look for in a wide receiver, and he's the mold. We like guys that are tall and can run and are a matchup issue for the defense." He ended up spending time at 2 different high schools, as he was at Washington Union and Edison High School, and in total had nearly 1,600 yards and 24 touchdowns. But he was not a big deal on 24/7 Sports, as he was only a 3-star recruit, the number 203 athlete, and the 2,622nd best player in the class of 2020. So how'd he end up doing at Nevada? Well, let's take a look. So when Tory Horton arrived at Nevada, nobody knew who this guy was, and he was not really supposed to make a whole lot of noise. But luckily, he had a couple of players to learn under, including future NFL receiver Romeo Doubs, who's actually really good for the Green Bay Packers. Because of that, he would end up making an early impact, with Norvell saying, quote, "We love big receivers, and he's kind of the prototype for what you look for. He scored a touchdown in his first game as a freshman and has not really stopped since." At the time, Horton was also only 17 years old, and in total his freshman year back in 2020, Tory caught 20 passes for 336 yards and 5 touchdowns, and his best game came against Fresno State. That was honestly really cool, as during that breakout performance, he went nuts. He ended up having 5 catches for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had a score against both Hawaii and Wyoming, and he was on track to becoming a young star in the league. Things would get even better his second year, as in 2021, Horton would catch 52 passes for 659 yards and 5 touchdowns. His best performance came against Colorado State, in which he had 4 catches for over 100 yards and 2 scores, and he also had over 100 yards against Air Force. Things were going really well for him, and he'd actually end up making a move before the 2022 season due to Jay Norvell taking the Colorado State job. All of a sudden, he walked into Colorado State with pretty big shoes to fill, as they've had some really big names over the last couple of years, including guys like Rashard Higgins, Michael Gallup, and tight end Trey McBride. He was seen as a guy who could maybe become the next All-American while he was at Colorado State, and in 2022, he was really solid. Horton would end up having a career-high 71 catches for 1,131 yards and 8 touchdowns. He even had 6 catches on the road against Michigan, 3 touchdowns against Middle Tennessee State, 127 yards against Sacramento State, 196 yards against San Jose State, 168 yards against Wyoming, and 10 catches for 131 yards against New Mexico. He was one of the top wide receivers in all of college football, and by the end of the 2022 season, he was all of a sudden getting big-time offers. What do you mean by that? Well, they tried to poach him. Norvell said, quote, "Our best players have been approached by a number of schools, and we're just fortunate that we've got great character. Tory Horton has been approached by schools in the SEC that have taken players from other schools. I think it's character that's kept him here, and he's shown me screenshots of people offering him $50,000 to come play for him." Okay, the only thing that seems a little bit suspect about that is that he was only offered $50,000, as that's not a whole lot in the NIL age, especially for a big-time wide receiver like that. Well, he'd end up having a really good 2023 season as well, as he ended up bolstering his numbers up to 96 catches for 1,136 yards and 8 touchdowns. His first month of 2023 was truly unbelievable. He had over 9 catches in his first 4 games, including a 16-catch outing against Colorado. He also had 227 yards and 3 touchdowns against Utah Tech, had 10 catches against Boise State, and then would finish the year with over 9 catches for 186 yards against Hawaii. Things were going really well for him, but he would decide to come back for one more year, which would sort of hurt him. Horton would end up having a disastrous 2024 season, as while he did have 5 catches in Week 1 against Texas, he ultimately would get hurt. He was hurt in the second game of the season against Northern Colorado, and would attempt to return a few weeks later against Colorado, but it would not end up going well. He was severely limited in that one, didn't play again for a month, and then went down with a knee injury that would sideline him for the rest of the season. He said, quote, "Coach Norvell was the guy who gave me a shot and a chance coming out of high school, so I was like, man, if he sees potential in me and puts his trust and money on me, I feel like I have to reward him." In this case, the loyalty would end up biting him a little bit, but it's not Jay Norvell's fault that he ended up getting hurt. In total, he had 26 catches for 353 yards and a touchdown, and he was one of the best receivers in Colorado State football history. He was twice named a first-team All-Mountain West selection, had over 1,100 yards in consecutive years, and in total had 265 catches for 3,600 yards and 27 touchdowns across 5 seasons. He would declare for the 2025 NFL Draft, where he was seen as a Day 3 selection. Since he was healthy, he'd ended up being able to run at the combine, and ran a 4.41 40-yard dash time, and also showed great ability to cut and run routes. He was 6'3" and 200 pounds, but many would believe that he would need to gain both mass and muscle to withstand playing in the league, and he had the frame to do it, but he would not be seen as an immediate impactful player. Horton would end up having his dreams come true, as the Seattle Seahawks would take him with the 30th pick in the 5th round, which was number 166 overall, and this was a steal to many. The Seahawks already have guys like Cooper Kupp and Marquez Valdez-Scantling to pair alongside Jackson Smith-Njigba, and honestly it seems like Horton could fit in as a number 4 option in year 1, with eventually having a high ceiling. Cooper Kupp is getting towards the end of his career, and MVS is kind of all over the place, so I could definitely see him becoming a big-time player. One beat writer said, quote, "Horton can be the outside player they need alongside JSN and Kupp. Kupp is also on the downturn of his career, meaning Horton can become the wide receiver 2 on the team in a few years, and you'll have an opportunity to earn a starting job and build on that role as the years go on. Honestly, I do agree with their assessment there, except I probably think Seattle will go for another big-time receiver in next year's draft, and that's not a slight against Tory, but it just kind of makes logical sense. So many teams take receivers, but Tory will have a year to prove his worth and show he has a high ceiling worth pouring money into. I think he has a great story, as he had one FBS offer coming out of high school and ended up becoming one of the best receivers in Mountain West football history. He now has his chance in Seattle, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he is going to play. But what do you guys think? If you're a fan of Tory Horton, Colorado State, or the Seahawks, how do you think he's going to do in the league, and what other players should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen, including my video about another Mountain West receiver in Jalen Royals, who's with the Chiefs. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.